Yeah, I read the Bible. Project.
Jang, jang, jang.
Hi everyone and welcome back to the Pokeball podcast. Today it's Ayam Kunyit, nasi kunyit.
Nasi Ayam Kunyit. Amazing stuff. You should try it out at Bukit Bintang near Public Bank. There's
Very viral.
There's
KL
a food
foodie.
court. Thanks to KL Foodie. Now it's harder to get.
Long queues, yeah.
So this is not just a podcast about our faith. It's
No.
also a food.
That's right.
Food
Physical
introduction.
food.
Yeah. Introduce Malaysian food. Yum.
Yum, yum, yum.
All right. So the two of them are enjoying the very spicy lunch today. And today our conversation is going to be about digital discipleship.
Ooh, okay. All right.
So a little bit of a follow-up from our first episode where we talked about social media. So today we're actually focusing in to very particularly the discipleship experience, if there is such a thing. So the discipleship experience in the digital space. Yeah. How are you guys feeling today?
Hungry.
That's how we're eating, right?
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have food for podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the first question, I'm not eating by the way because I'm going to be asking them a lot of questions today. So the thing is, I'm doing this for my research project. So they are my guinea pigs. So first question, guys, what are your thoughts, general thoughts on the role of social media and digital platforms in discipleship?
I think cannot run away lah.
Have to lah. In this
Have to lah,
in
yeah.
this digital age, if you don't have social media, I think you are cancelled.
Correct. Yeah. Or you're cancelling out a lot of the demographics of people who are already on social media. You're essentially not reaching even the people who are in your churches, in your communities. Yeah.
But it can be quite, I don't know, sometimes some people feel very uncertain about going online or they might not feel like it's a comfortable space even for them to be in, right? Yeah.
And people do have toxic, right? I have people who went to a digital detox because of social media.
I see.
And they actually
Yeah.
felt more mentally well after that. But in the end, maybe because if you want to get connected, to reach out, to be accessible to the people, it's always the digital platform that makes it easier.
You see, that one I can understand. If the people who are making the decisions are people who are actually using social media, and then if you need to cut down, I suspect though a lot of the decision making is being done by people who aren't familiar with it. So they're unsure, they don't know what it is, they've never had to deal with this before because I think we're just coming to that turning point. And so I think if they want to make that decision, they need to consult the people who are already on social media. Yeah. And so if they make a decision based on, oh no, actually they don't want it or it's harmful, then I totally respect that. But if you don't want to use it because, oh, I don't know what it is, I don't really care, I just want to stick with my own thing, then I think you're missing out lah. You're missing out on a proportion of people who are already there, who are already listening, and who are already making use of it, whether we want to or not.
Right. So basically, Calvin, is like you're saying that there are a lot of opportunities in the digital space, whether we
Exactly.
like it or not. The opportunities
Yes.
are there.
Yeah.
So it's really up for us to be using it. But of course, I think we are talking right now from the perspective of the church, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Very, very interesting. What about like your personal experience, more as the one being discipled rather than the discipler? Do you guys use, digital resources for that, or do you feel like it has informed even your own discipleship experience?
What do you think, Lydia?
I don't know. If I were to go back to COVID days, where we have everything, all our connects are online, our cell groups are online, and I felt that, you get to meet the people, but you don't have that much more intimate connection. It's like, everyone just disappeared at a certain time, bam, and within the week, there's no much of WhatsApp communications too. So it's mainly like on that day and boom. So that's why compared to a church, like a physical setting right now, thankfully we're all back. Then you get to see them, you get to understand, you get to see their personality even more. And then you can get to get connected with them. So I do think that, so in online space, unless you want to reach out to an international market, I know there are some online courses that run, like the marriage course, and
That's a good point.
it does. I think that's why when they see that there is reach, and then now they are moving towards the online platforms. The physical one is It's also there, but the online, it also has the further international reach. Whether you want to reach locally or
Okay.
reach internationally. Yeah.
Are they two different people though? Because you're talking about those who are nearby and can meet up, and then you say further reach. Are they the same kinds of people, you think?
Definitely quite different. Yeah. Those who
Okay.
can make it here definitely has a more intimate, more
Okay.
intention to do. Like, and
Okay.
there's someone to actually oversee them. Like there's a couple
Correct,
counselor. But it's
yeah.
much more, you get to have your answers in a much more physical sense, I would say. If you connect online, it's like, it's a bit,
Yeah, because I've heard the argument that the people who are far away, right, they go to the church nearby them lah. Why you going to listen to this church like in another country, another city like that? You cari your own church lah. Go and cari your own community lah. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, well, Lydia, you're halfway eating, so I don't want to like.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that I wanted to like kind of tease out a little bit more was because you said when during COVID going online, you felt like you were just meeting online and then that was it. You know, there wasn't. It was maybe what I'm hearing is that it's quite challenging to kind of build further on in that relationship. But then when you come back to church in this like in-person kind of setting, you find it easier. But then the thing is, my thought was that for most of us, church is a once a week kind of event,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
even if you do CG, then that's like maybe twice a week. And at
Okay.
most, the actual like service or CG is 3 hours from start to end,
True.
right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
how is that different? Because actually, if you think about it in terms of frequency, it's really not that frequent also.
I don't know. It's just like the physical. If I tend to like, I feel I have better connection with
Okay.
being if I don't know, it's something like Calvin's experience with SPTC online versus
Yeah.
versus
That's a good
being
idea.
being online. But
Yeah.
you definitely there, like Shirley, right? One of our classmates. We never get to see her because she's always in Ipoh.
Okay.
And then, but the thing is, she felt like, I'm so thankful for coming to the retreat because that's where I
Okay.
get to see you. I get to be connected with you. And
Yeah.
she felt very, very happy. So she felt more connected. So, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Calvin?
Well, every morning, I catch my dad listening to the news, but on WhatsApp. So someone sends him like a file of someone that sounds like Patrick Teo, the very deep voice, said, today in the news. And he much rather would watch and listen to that than say the TV lah.
Right.
Because it's sent to him, it's sent by a friend, and it's very senang, you just press like that. And it makes me think that actually, social media is already doing discipleship. You know, this is not talking about church, whatever, but it's actually teaching us something.
Yes.
And it's reaching a particular audience that from my dad's perspective, right, it's almost like Patrick Teo speaking to him directly.
Right.
So I think whoever came out with that understands that there's kind of like a personal nature to social media, that it can feel very personal. Like podcasts, like we listen to this, right, it's almost like I'm talking to you directly, right?
Yeah.
But actually it's not. So it's an illusion on one hand. But on the other hand, I think it shows that yearning to be able to have that direct contact, be able to meet one another. But it's so susah. It's actually
Right.
really hard. You have to come all the way here. You have to go and
It
put
is.
aside your time.
Drive
And then
jam.
yeah, correct. You jump
Illegal
and
U-turn.
break so many rules just to get
Yeah.
here. Yeah. And I think what I'm saying is that I think people even who use the social media know it's second best. They are looking for the same things. But in a funny way, because it's so intentional, the way that people do things on social media, the podcasts and stuff, they might be doing it in a much more intentional way than people just hanging out now. Yeah.
Interesting.
I thought you say the social media, there's a face of a social media.
The face,
Yeah, the last
Like
our first
a
episode.
YouTube face
Yeah.
and a YouTube
And then-
voice.
It's fake, right? I mean, it is. I mean, the guy who's reading the news has no idea who's listening to him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But they're doing it in such a way that they know that whoever's listening to this, right, is not listening to it in a hall. And I think, therefore, you know, the YouTube face and YouTube voice as well. You know, that's one thing to preach in front of a church of 500 people, and you should raise your voice and you should make hand gestures. But you can't and maybe shouldn't do that in the podcast.
Right.
Because it's just one guy, and then you raise your voice so high. Why this person so intense one?
With the Lord, amen.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah.
So out of curiosity, because all of us are on some form of social media or digital platforms. So I just wanted to kind of get a gauge, like what are the platforms that you use the most? Which ones do you frequent the most?
I don't know, Instagram, because they are much more. They
Okay.
are much more. I mean, fast. I would say they have summaries of it, which is much more digestible, quick. Facebook a bit. Okay lah. I think there are much more random stuff, to random gossips and all to read. Then so Instagram, if you go into that, then you get to see more content and Instagram.
TikTok?
No man.
Not really.
I really don't know how to navigate through TikTok, man. It's so randomized, right? Unless you have to have a certain habit, then only the algorithm kicks in. You know, I have to find my content, takes forever.
I see.
But I like another platform called Xiaohongshu.
What was this? A Chinese one?
Xiaohongshu is basically Little Red
Book.
Yes,
I think.
but the thing
You
is,
heard of it as well?
but
Okay.
I mean, the thing is, if I were to, but the thing is, of course, there's not much Christian content because it's from China.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't know this. Never heard of it before.
But they have much more educational content. So that means, right, if you go to the right platform, it does not mean you have to see all this junk content. There are good contents out there. You just need to find the right source.
Alright.
So for me, I think if it's English content, I'll go Instagram.
Okay.
If it's a Mandarin one, then I'll go to Xiaohongshu, like Little Red Book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Calvin?
Actually, I want to ask you
Me?
because you have your platform, but you split between actually different options, right?
Yeah. So I post on Instagram.
Okay.
But I don't scroll through Instagram as much these days. Actually, really very rarely. And I think we kind of touched on that on the first episode as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But I do use YouTube a lot.
Okay. For learning, for entertainment.
Yeah, for even like faith kind of resources. I listen to a lot of sermons online.
YouTube.
Yeah, not even
Yeah.
like from my church, but other churches in different countries. So
Yeah.
actually, I am on YouTube a lot. Yeah.
Okay. For sermons. I think some people will be surprised that you can find
Yes.
sermons on
Yeah,
YouTube.
for
One.
me.
Yes. So yeah, I do have some speakers, pastors that I follow, and
Yeah.
I keep up with them actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, for me, Bible Project. Yeah.
Bible Project is so good.
Yeah. So
Help
good.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're gonna see a person talking all the way, no, I need something fun. So
I
Bible
think
Project.
Bible Project, right, is a YouTube channel that a lot of pastors subscribe to secretly. Because they don't want the church to know that they take the idea off from that one. Because it's so good. Spoil
Summary.
market one. Because it's so good. They can summarize the whole book of 1 Corinthians. Then, wow, I don't know how to preach already. It's so good already just to make them listen to this.
yeah, that's why.
Yeah, so they secretly subscribe, but then
Yeah.
they don't tell other people.
Yeah. I read the Bible Project.
Yes.
That's why. That's good.
Yeah. What about you, Calvin? Like, what are your platforms?
Podcast. Yeah. So again, it's part of my routine every morning. I listen to Tim Keller when
Right.
I'm on the train here, and then as I'm doing that, I'm reading my Bible readings on email. So it gets sent to me. So I read 4 passages every day. It gets into my inbox. I don't read all 4, but I at least read the first 2, and it's already in my inbox. I don't have to scroll to the page.
So you actually subscribe to someone's newsletter?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that way I go through the New Testament and Old Testament in 1 year.
Right. Nikki Gumbels? I don't know.
yeah.
It's not.
Yours is like Bible. I mean, like Nikki Gumbel.
I tried that. Now the thing is that because it's an app,
Yes.
I have it on my phone. I forgot even I have it on my phone, but because it's through email, right? Somehow the notifications and it's for me that's something I've been used to for so long. But I'm a big fan of that as well. I think Nikki Gumbel, he used to have it in a different form, but now it's an app and now it's a daily reminder. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, it's been an app for a while, and for any of you who is watching this, you can download that app. Actually, it is really useful. I think for anyone who wants to even like learn or start off reading the Bible,
Yeah.
because the commentaries is very guided. So it's called The Bible with Nikki and Pippa Gumbel. You can download it on the App Store or
Yeah.
on
Support.
iOS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sponsor us,
Good
sponsor
content.
us.
Good content.
Actually,
And the
picking
voice
up
of
on
Nikki.
that, because you're asking us what we use, but
Yes.
we're also answering how often.
Oh.
So
Yes.
habits. So
No,
I think,
interesting.
there are habits which are bad, like spending too much time on Instagram and doom scrolling.
That's the problem with Instagram.
It is, right? Because it just sucks you in.
And then somehow it suggested for you some distracting
I think
content,
TikTok
bam,
lagi
and then
worse
you just
lah.
works.
Yeah.
Like we're on TikTok.
But following that, there are good habits. So there are ways of building frequency in your Bible reading, frequency in just reading your Bible, that kind of thing. That make use of these same utilities. And I think it's just, I think there's a term called habit stacking.
Yes.
Whereby you do a particular habit already, then put something on top of that. So if like for me, that's why when I'm on the train, right, I have to take the train every day. So do something on top of that that will kind of like stack on top lah. So read Bible during the train.
That's
ride.
from the book by James Clear, right? Atomic Habits.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah.
I think he does talk about like habit stacking. So I really like what you said. Like it's become a habit for you because you do take the train every day, and then it's part of your train routine lah, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For those driving, we should need self-driving car, right? Self-driving car. Oh.
Yeah.
Self-driving car, then can then just read.
Coming soon, the self-driving car. Soon. Lydia, what about you and podcast? I'm just asking because we are doing a podcast.
Oh yeah, welcome. I mean, definitely it's good. So I do listen to. I just randomly. Unfortunately, I am very terrible with names. So whatever comes up, and I'll just take a listen to.
Interesting.
But actually, mine is more towards an app, Lactio 365.
Oh, I love that app too.
So it's around that one, yeah. So there is also a person narrating. So when I just lie onto my bed and just listen. But yeah, it's good. Someone narrating, and as you hear their voice, you don't just sleep after that. You reflect.
Yeah,
So
Lecture 365 is a really good app as well. I think we can all put that all in the description of this episode.
Very devotional. If you like a devotional study, Lactio.
Yeah. It's interesting. So for me, I listen to podcasts, but I listen to my podcasts on YouTube, not even like Spotify.
So how do you actually look at it, or do you just play in the background?
I just play it in the background. Interesting, right?
Then why you YouTube?
I don't know. It's like it's such a habit. And then for me, in my mind, is like Spotify is music, and then sermons is YouTube. So I will just like kind of leave it on.
But then YouTube got advertisements some more. You cannot skip. Spotify don't have.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about
Premium.
it. Yeah, but that's premium.
You premium, you subscribe premium.
I didn't. But
I got a friend who subscribe.
actually, quite a few people subscribe. I think if you do use it a lot, like
correct lah, it's like Netflix like that.
yeah. So
Yeah.
interesting, right? Like even for podcasts, and that's why for videos, I don't really care if the visuals are not great, because some of the podcasts that I listen to on YouTube is just like one slide, and then it's the audio the whole way, and it's fine.
Actually, initially, right, when we first did the first episode, got this angle the angle there. After that, lazy don't just one angle only just export.
Yeah. We just deal with whatever comes out, right? Yeah. Interesting to hear about the kind of platforms that we do use. We touch a little bit on the importance between in-person relationships in the discipleship process. I think you talked a little bit about that. Yeah. But Calvin, I would love to hear your thoughts. Sorry, you're gonna.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
sorry. The question again was what? In-person relationships.
Yeah. So in-person relationships and online relationships.
And online relationships.
Is it still? How important do you think it is to still have that in-person factor? Even with the rise of digital discipleship, right? Because it is a thing. We said that.
Yeah, I think even though obviously I'm a big fan of online and social media, and I think we should make the most of it. I think it's unrealistic to think that will go away anytime soon. I still think in-person relationships have been around for so long. It hasn't replaced any kind of. Well, think of it this way, lah. So I come from Cambridge. It's 800 years old. Cambridge is 800 years old. The youngest building is also 200 years old, and we're all batu one.
Wow.
And it's a university whereby if you go inside any of these buildings, you see one old guy with a big beard teaching a classroom of students.
Gandalf.
Yeah, Gandalf. You actually can play Gandalf one. Yeah. And then they ride the bicycle also with their beard jangkut down the road one.
It's Harry Potter in real life.
It is, yeah. But if they wanted to change, right, they have had so many opportunities. And not just Cambridge, MIT, Oxford. They could have had, some virtual reality person. And I'm not saying that won't happen in some form in the future. But for the last 800 years, the same mode of communication has been the way in which they teach people. And if you think about our churches as well, for the same how many millennia is one guy preaching from the Bible to a bunch of people sitting down in their chairs. I think it's not just that we are used to certain things, but God uses relationship to impart knowledge. The way that He reveals Himself, He didn't just thunder from heaven. He actually gets people to talk to one another and tell about Him.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the most special and most internal way for us to receive knowledge.
Imagine if Jesus digitally
Digitally,
he did not come to earth, and be among His disciples. I wonder will the disciples even remember what they learned?
Oh, that is such an interesting thought.
Right.
Interesting
Like, he's always
scenario.
embedded, like,
Yeah.
he's always a God, like there's God, and then they always
Yeah.
need a messenger in between, like the prophets and all. There is always a link. You can't just
Yeah,
out
that's
there.
true.
So,
Yeah.
I like it because being physical, you get to engage the more senses of our body we have, and that's help us in our recalling, in our learning also, compared to like if it's online, you get to maybe talk, but the sense of touch and all, and that togetherness is just quite lacking. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. So the experience within community is actually quite, it's very all-rounded. It kind of engages you as the whole person, because you mentioned touch, so it's being able to see someone, being in the same room, like it's that physical sense that really still makes a difference. I think that's really interesting to think about, because I'm also reflecting on my own experiences, right?
Okay.
Like from COVID, we did CGs online, we did church online, we did everything
It's an
online.
interesting real life experiment, though.
Yes.
Everyone actually did it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I
to.
think for me, because I am like pretty introverted, at some point I did kind of became quite okay with
Yeah,
that.
okay.
And I
Yeah.
thought that I wasn't very impacted by the lack of like physical gathering within community. But
Yeah.
I think when things started to open up and I came back into like a physical gathering, then I realized actually it is different. Yeah, so I think even for those of us who feel like we could become comfortable with just being online or being only in the digital space, there is still something that maybe a part of us needs, I think, to be in community. Yeah, but that's just
Yeah.
my thoughts. Yeah.
Do you think the people who have been watching church services online, do they think, is it because they think, okay, this is much better than meeting in person, or is it that they wish they could actually meet people in person, and there's something that's preventing them from coming in person?
Yeah.
Because it's two different things, right? It's one thing if they go, wow, I love this is the best thing in the world, I never want to change it anymore. Or the other is that actually I do wish that I could do this, but this is second best, and I'm making the most of it.
Yeah. Interesting. I do have a few thoughts, but maybe Lydia, do you have anything that you want to say
I don't know,
first?
man. The moment when HDBB opens up physical, you see all the Mandarin Hall auntie, uncle, whoa, come back,
yeah,
they
yeah.
were excited to come back.
Correct,
They
yeah.
really, and after that, the online service was like only like 10, 9, 17, like nobody wants to go online.
But it's like Shake Shack, ma. I mean, when Shake Shack first opened, like, everybody used to go Shake Shack. But now it's like,
But Shake Shack does only feel the belly, but the HDBB feel the spiritual, the community, it has much
Yeah.
more value in it. So
Yeah.
they like it. So the gathering, maybe it's an age thing.
Okay.
Where
I
maybe
think
the
it is.
youngsters
I
are
think it
more
is.
digital connected, but the
Yeah.
older they really love gathering.
Yeah.
They wow everyone. They're just so excited to come back.
Yeah.
and I think there's an element to that whereby for them that might not even be an option. I mean, they might not be used to turning on the computer and then going,
Yeah.
hey, where to find this YouTube channel, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, my mom. I'm the IT support for my mom. Anything Zoom.
That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
my job too during the pandemic.
So that
IT
means
support.
it
Yeah,
is
right.
important. That they felt like, why don't go back to church? So much more convenient.
Yeah, but that's, you see, the choice for them is between going to church and staying at home and not having church, you see. So I think for that one obviously it's clear lah.
Yeah.
Go to church. But for those for whom both are real options, right? On a Sunday and then maybe have kids and then so mafan, I go and drive them out, pack them out in the car, go to church, that kind of thing. Just watch it online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is a very real option that people are taking up
Okay.
these days, and I think totally understandable.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and for some people it could be even work, right? Like work gets in the way. Not everyone works Monday to Friday. There are some of us who work over weekends as well. So having church on a Sunday could be a challenge, just because you really do need to be somewhere else. You can't make it to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to think about all these options and how for some of us both of these options are very accessible. But my curiosity would be for those of us who maybe choose to be almost 100% online, would we feel like we are actually growing in our faith without in the absence of
I really
the
want to
larger
know the
community?
answer to that. Yeah.
So I'm really interested to know as well. If anyone out there, you have like a really strong opinion, we would love to hear from you. If you have like comments or thoughts, we would love to hear from you. For me, I would think, I mean, of course, I'm in the middle of my research, right? So finding out now. But I would think that it's still a mix. At the very least, it would still be hybrid. It's either completely physical or it's hybrid. I would think it's quite a challenge for it to be 100% online.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
Okay.
Just by nature of like maybe some people's situations, they need to be fully online. Yeah, so it's not impossible.
I mean, the church has to put resources into doing these kind of things.
Yes, but there has to be a lot of intentionality from the church if you do want to like help people grow solely in the digital and online space.
So I did your questionnaire. Fern is doing this research project whereby she's kind of like measuring how much people are using online content. And for me, when I answered the bit whereby do I watch the YouTube sermons, I don't, you know. So because I come here on Sunday already, it's not that I don't even think about it. I've forgotten that actually the sermons are online. And the only time I ever watch it is if I want to make like some funny video, and then I go, hey, what did he say? Very funny. I want to clip out. I'm gonna make some video. But I feel right. I've already eaten a full meal on Sundays. But because of that, I'm very empathetic. Actually, I don't want to discount that. Actually, there are people for whom that's their main meal.
Yes.
And so that's why I genuinely, when I say I'm genuinely interested to find out. Actually, I'm wondering, for them, right? You know, how much of a lifeline is it for them to even be able to, you know, see the sermon and appreciate. Actually, you guys do such a good job because it actually is the sermon that's preached on Sunday one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 week ahead.
1 week ahead. It's a lot
got
of work.
a preview again, but it only displays on the coming Sunday.
Correct. A lot of effort goes into it.
Behind the production team, there's a lot of effort. When I do serve for the production, there's a lot of effort.
And it's done very well. Yeah.
Thank you to those.
Well done. Didier does a lot of
before,
video,
and
camera
whenever
work.
they need help, I help. But
Big group of people, but she's one of them lah.
I was one of them. So when they need help, you see there is intention. They HTBB thankfully they do see a need. And then after that, most likely we're going to go into the next platform called live streaming.
I'm really curious to see how that will pick up.
So that means in a way, I don't know how would the burden able to hold up if they introduce a new burden, or is it something going to lighten up the need for production to say? But we are still in the testing phase.
Actually, what's the difference between a recorded and a live stream?
Recorded need to prepare 1 week ahead.
So doing that, can prepare the night before and just complete and then go record.
But I don't know. I actually did not ask them why the intention to go live stream. I
think the difference with live is that whatever you see in the room in person
part of it
is being streamed directly
in a way.
For example, YouTube or Facebook. So the people who are watching from home on Sundays now, they're not going to be watching something that is pre-recorded. They're going to be watching a service that is happening in real time.
I agree, and I think it also caters to a certain audience. So, for example, you know what? If we did this podcast live, right? No one's going to watch it. but if imagine we had a lot of friends, you know, who already been listening to this podcast, really big all around the world already, and then say, this is going to be live. Yes, a lot of people would then tune into that, and so live stuff is often a reflection of your real life relationships. So people who would tune in live, I think, would be mostly existing church members who, again, actually they can't come, but then go, wow, this is actually happening right now. I know that person. And they feel as if they're part in the room. But at the same time, it wouldn't be very appealing to someone who has no contact with the church because it isn't as polished. There'll be more pauses, there'll be more ums and ahs. So I think it might be hitting a different target, but in a good way lah. I think if you get the way in which HTBB has done it is that they do the offline first and then they do the live one. That means actually now they're leveraging on people who are already following them, church members.
I think one of the things that is interesting about this, and obviously HTBB is not the first church to do it, and the only reason why we're talking about HTBB is because that is the church that we go to. But I have read some thoughts around, you know, building an online sort of community for churches, and they actually consider that a campus the way you would consider a geographical location
really?
a campus.
Okay.
So they call it like the digital campus or the online campus. So you're looking at your online community as an actual church plant.
Interesting.
You know,
Okay.
you're not just streaming a service, but you're thinking about it holistically as a church plant. How do you follow up with
okay.
people after the service? How do you minister to them? How do you continue to connect
So like we have
to
5
them?
p.m. congregation. This is online congregation.
Yes, like 5 p.m. online congregation. And they are like a whole group of people who exist in the digital sphere, you know?
To do what? To answer prayer requests, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Service, hosting,
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
and then
Hosting,
from,
hello, welcome, welcome to church.
And then,
Pray.
and then from there you're branching off into like the smaller connect groups and all that. So you're building like a whole ecosystem around it. And there are frameworks out there. People are talking about these kind of frameworks, which I think is really interesting to
Yeah.
see that, you know, some churches are really, really embracing this. And I think especially in the States, I'm not going to name churches, but I know that in the States there are churches that are really, really leaning into this. Yeah.
I really respect that because thought is put into it, and they're considering the people at the end of the day. You know, who can they engage?
Yeah.
And you have to apply resources into it. You have to get volunteers to man the comments and to give responses.
A lot of IT support.
A lot.
Technical,
it's actually,
full
yeah.
of it.
Wow. I can only imagine all the things that you know you have to deal
But
with,
it's
all
more
the
like
firefighting.
accessibility. What about the older generation who are living alone? Were they able to still access them?
It's a great question.
Right, you're trying
That's a
to build
great
an online
question.
community where
Yeah.
there's people able to access it.
Yeah. How would you address that, right?
I don't know, man.
Because, yeah.
Yeah, because in my church, I came from a Baptist church, and you see, right, because of technology, because of live streaming from the church, people are lazy to go to church now. And now they always complain, oh, now our offering is so little, nobody comes to church.
Oh no.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's
okay,
true.
so
alright.
because, and then that's why every time when the pastor's preaching, like the first front rows are definitely empty. All people like to hide behind. It's like, but the thing is, but maybe because my church, my Baptist church, was generally an older crowd, like maybe above 60s generally. So maybe, I don't know, are they taking it as a reason of health that they're not coming, or they take it as a convenience that they don't want to come to church?
Right. Yeah. I think it's so complex because there's so many different layers to why someone would or would not come to church. But
Okay.
I think what Lydia mentioned, I think demographics actually do play a part.
Yeah.
So if in terms of like, if we're talking about digital discipleship, we also need to kind of be really clear about who we're talking about, because it's
Yeah.
not everyone. Yeah. Okay, maybe we can land sort of like on the last question. I just want to kind of land in this thought about like, how can digital discipleship continue to remain Christ-centered, biblically grounded? And I'm not talking about like from a pastor's kind of perspective, because we are not like leading a church, but in some ways each of us, I think we do have certain leadership positions in church. Like some of us are maybe like co-leading a CG. You're using online resources as well, or even as like part of the congregation, you are receiving that sort of like discipleship through the digital space. How can we as a church ensure that we continue to be centered around Jesus and
Yeah.
the
In
word?
the online space.
Yeah.
I don't know.
How
man. I
Any
still don't know,
thoughts?
man. Let's ask ChatGPT. I don't know, but I think the community plays a super role. It's not a pastor thing to do it. The community should have the responsibility to keep each other in check, you know, like all of us has. So I think that's why if you want it to work, it has to be a communal sense. Yeah. So you maybe make it intentional. There is a schedule. I mean, like there is a certain day, so at least people can expect how they can be involved, how they can help.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the question is how to be
How to
biblical,
Christ-centered.
Yes.
how to focus on God,
Yes.
but in the digital space.
Yes, because the digital space
Okay.
can present a lot of distractions, you know, and I think it's just a different world that you're navigating once you go into the online sphere. So how do you make sure that, you know, you are still preaching the truth?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're using microphones now, And all it does is just amplifies our voice. The microphone doesn't change what we're going to say, it just makes it louder. And so the digital space is just an amplifier. So in a way, if you're unbiblical, you just make that more so. But if you're biblical, make that more so. But if you want to focus on God, I would say, then put that aside and focus on God lah. I think the funny thing about doing that is that once you have this clear focus, it's all about Jesus, it's all about preaching the gospel, is everything else is secondary, then even the digital space becomes a secondary issue. You have almost that freedom to explore it or not. And because already, you have the basics, you have the important things nailed down, such that, whether you just want to keep on doing it the way that you're doing it, just one-to-one, and then just within your community, it will be, I think if you're focused on God, that will work lah. But if you want to go further and you want to see it reach beyond just your church walls, then again, it's an overflow of what's already there. Yeah. So I think the scary thing is that if you look at digital churches, especially on YouTube channels, you're essentially seeing previously you couldn't see what these churches were about. You had to go all the way there. But I think it might be truer to what each church stands for than maybe they themselves realize.
Right.
And so sometimes we are so preoccupied, like I'm so preoccupied putting out content, so preoccupied making this podcast. Sometimes it's very painful to listen to it yourself and go, hey, actually, I mention this thing so often, or I'm so obsessed about this kind of thing. And sometimes we need to listen to what is it we ourselves are putting out into the world.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like Kelvin is saying that actually being on the digital space, one of the things that does happen, whether we realize it or not, is that it does expose. It exposes whether or not we think we're exposing ourselves in that way, but it comes out, and not only does it come out, but actually it's amplified sometimes even more on the platform. So the good is amplified, but the bad is also. Yeah, so really food for thought.
Yeah, food for thought. Unless you just AI and curate it. I'm just joking,
Yeah. So, yes, I think we're probably going to land here. There are a lot of questions that I think I could still ask, but one thing to acknowledge that this whole, even the phrase like digital discipleship, it's so big. And I think to some people it's so new. And really, I think it's really considered still a very relatively new field. In Malaysia, maybe as well. We're still, I would say we're still babies. We made a lot of progress. I think COVID really accelerated a lot of things, but there's still so much to learn. And if anyone watching this is something that you're really interested in, like reach out to us. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you are doing in this space. And we would love to hear from more people. All right. See you next week then.
Bye.
Bye.